No, I'm not.
I didn't see you. I was looking for you. I just wondered.
I
Yeah.
haven't. I haven't been on Facebook since 2016.
Oh, I got you. Yeah. It's gonna take. It's gonna take a couple of minutes. Let me just get everything set. Let me.
Why don't we switch seats?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, it wouldn't let me switch the names. All right. It's 4:11. So it's 2:11 over there. Let's see here. Let me make sure that it took.
Oh, wait.
Uh,
Wait. Oh no, that's right.
That's so weird.
what
It
happened?
it changed. I don't know. It
Like, we switched seats, but we're still sitting on this. Like I'm still on your.
yeah, but I'm on Claudia. Oh,
No, you're
It's just
right.
the camera switched it.
Yeah. Claudia, scoot to your right just a little bit. No, you're
is this
right.
right?
Yeah, that's right. Okay, let's see where Patrick lands. Patrick, you can come over just a little bit. Yeah, so we get y'all in there.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what we got. Oh, they're coming in. We got 7 people in the house. Just a couple of quick things. One, we're being suppressed like we never have before. We're currently off of YouTube. We have one more strike on YouTube. So hopefully that won't happen. Hopefully we'll have an alternative. And yeah, so if you can, and we're also being suppressed on Facebook too. So if you could share to one group or to your page, that'd be cool. And if not, that's cool. So we got a special show today with our beautiful sister Claudia. Everybody knows her, and she's got a friend, a special friend named Patrick. So we were having a show a couple of weeks ago with Alicia Young Hall from Costa Rica, and she was talking about the Mayan calendar. And we've heard a couple of things in regard to the Mayan thing from our community. One was the calendar that she showed us. Two, Ty Hudnall was talking about how the New World actually begins. It wasn't on December 21st, 2012. And again, I just put this information out there. We put all the information out there so we can all gather and discern for ourselves. But that it actually that marked the beginning of when the new world would start. But it's almost like a gateway or corridor, and it ended on December 21st, 2022. So the Mayan thing is coming up. I got a bunch of Hopi stuff last night, which I've gotten over the years. A lot of people are getting a lot of things, so I think it's important to get information out there because I believe we're at a stage now when we become aware of something, code can at least at a minimum be accessed within ourselves through the reminder or the memory of it. So I don't know where you guys want to start, Patrick. Um, you know, Mayan calendar. We can talk about. Is it Wotifka or how do you pronounce that?
Wetikó or Watiko?
Wotiko. Okay,
Yeah.
Wotifka. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was telling you, David Icke had written a book about it on the second right when he came on the second show with us, and we talked about it quite a bit, which was interesting to me because, and we could talk about this. In fact, I think maybe we could start here if it's okay, and then we'll go into the Mayan thing because I have a feeling that's going to be a little bit more in depth. Uh, but the interesting thing about talking to David Icke about Wotifka, and this was uh, 2 years ago on the second show he did with us. I never knew that it had that the same things that we discuss in this community, and on these platforms, these types of communities, whatever, was actually something that was acknowledged and recognized, uh, and afforded space to in the indigenous cultures. Can you tell us what Wotifka is and how you came about, to find out about it, or anything that might connect to it?
Yeah. I learned about the concept from the documentary I Am, which came out in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
It's
I
Tom
remember that.
Shadyac, the guy that did Nutty Professor, Ace
Yep.
Ventura, and all those movies. And in that documentary, he's interviewing a guy that mentions it, and so that's when I learned about it. And then I became aware of Paul Levy,
Oh
who
yeah.
writes extensively about Wetikó or Wetikó. It depends. It's different cultures pronounce it in different ways.
Okay.
Uh, So yeah, I've been studying about it ever since then. It was so impactful to me, the way that it was presented in that documentary, that when I decided that I wanted to start putting information out, I wanted to call the story that I was telling "Discovering the Wetikó" or "Discovering Wetikó," because that was sort of the beginning of the process for me, is discovering that. Once I learned that that was a thing, and like you mentioned, it's an archetype that is expressed all over the world in different cultures. If you call it the archons, the devil, you know, the jinn in
Okay.
Islam, every culture has the same story told in a different way. But I resonate with the Native American version of it. I don't have Native American blood as far as I know, but I love the Native American stuff. I love Mayan culture, South American, indigenous cultures. I find them very fascinating and drawn to them. So that's how it came to me.
Yeah. Okay. And as I understand it, just to fill in the blanks for me, and maybe to help others that are listening, if I had to put it in my own words, what is it called?
What? Wetikó.
Watiko is like to me. Okay, let me. It's almost like an illusionary energy. Let's say that the two of you are sitting there. I walk in the room, and I try to impress something upon you that makes you uncomfortable. Let's just say. At that time, you have a choice to take that on and carry it with you, or to recognize it for what it is and let it go. And if I want to, what I do is my business, kind of thing. But what has happened in our past, and as we're becoming more aware, and say it's fading away, it's almost like gossip. Gossip would be another representation of the way I would try to explain it, and I don't know it. I just want to get the answers. But like, I tell you something, you take it on without question, and then you pass it on, and it just keeps going. I think there's a little bit, as I remember, when in regard to the subject, that there is somewhat, and to use a word, not get lost in semantics, like a negative connotation to it. In other words, it's unnecessary, it's debilitating and disempowering to those that are infected by it, for lack of a better word. So I don't know what you can add to that, or if I said something wrong, please correct me, and maybe you could go into a little bit more depth with it, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that David Icke describes it as a mind virus. And I think most cultures look at it as a negative frequency or a negative energy. And it operates in our subconscious. It operates on our blind spots. And one of its most fundamental ways of permeating through the culture is by convincing us that it's not there. Because if we don't pay attention to it, kind of like when you light a light in a dark room, the darkness flees. Same concept with Wetikó. When you bring attention to it, it loses its ability to control through our conscious.
Yeah.
Kind of like shining the light. Then, if we have this negativity working in us and stuff, and once we acknowledge it and bring focus to it, then it disperses.
Right, right. Well, you mentioned the archons, and there's a lot of narratives, and I hadn't thought about it till that second. The way you could kind of see the thread of association in the patterns of it with let's say the archonic narrative, or you could use another narrative, malevolent ETs or entities that can't materialize anything but can distort and present that whatever we call it, Wetikó. And so I can kind of see the association and how they're connected. It's another part of us. It's another piece of us in our journey and the way it's explained. But I think it really hits home because it's not in the biblical age, and it's not in the sci-fi arena, or it's right there with the indigenous. And I can think of two things that I find interesting in reflecting on this part of it with the indigenous that I've read about and heard about. One is when they had somebody that was born in the tribe that we would classify as mentally ill, they actually afforded these people space, and they looked at them for the gift that they offered that no one else had, which was, obviously sight to the other side. And they had to contend with, as a society, with their behavior as humans. But they were able to do it. And then another one I just saw very recently, which doesn't really contradict this, but it's an interesting thing to maybe contemplate. And I think this was an African tribe. And what it was, the explanation was that when somebody got out of line and had that mind virus or whatever, they would get around this person and just basically start, whatever their method of tuning fork method, dancing or chanting, I don't know, until they came out of it. So I thought that was interesting. I've only seen that one time though, but I don't know. To me, it just, so much of this time we're talking about embodying and anchoring, and they're just so close to us. That part of us is so close to us. In fact, we still have brothers and sisters, full-blooded, of many different Aboriginal and indigenous, civilizations and tribes.
So this Wetikó, I watched about 2 Paul Levy videos, and so this Wetikó, when we're not using our mind for creativity or advancement and things, this Wetikó comes in and it says, what are you doing here? No, you're no good, and all that stuff. So the way that we get back to our mind is we inhabit our mind, if I'm saying this right, well, whatever. We inhabit our mind and we start creativity. So we're directing ourselves instead of having this mind virus negativity occupy our brain's area.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I like that too, because I think that's one of the things that's coming to the surface, creativity, as our root chakras, seem to be becoming more illuminated or more clear, whatever. People are stepping up, and if you're creating all the time, and life is art, right? Then you won't have time for this stuff. Let's talk about the Mayan thing. How did you get involved with the Mayan culture?
I started studying astrology in 2013, and then I just sort of branched out and wanted to know about other cultures' version versus just the zodiac. And I think I came across a talk about it, about the Mayan calendar and the astrological aspects of it around 2014 or 2015. And it just really spoke to me. It really made a lot of sense to me, where the zodiac was a little more complex for me. So I just sort of gravitated towards it. And it just, the more attention I put to it, the more it kind of gave back to me in terms of understanding. So,
should we maybe we can show a little bit about? Well, we have a
Here, let me blow it up. There you go. What did you want to show?
Well, this is, or do you want to bring up the website of this?
doesn't matter, whichever way.
Well, see, this is the 260-day calendar.
This is the one that Alicia had the other day.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And so there's 20 sun signs. There's 20 different sun signs.
Uh-huh.
And then there's 13 columns, 13 columns across that make up 260 days. Now,
20.
within this, there are 13-day weeks. So the first day would be, up here. Anyway, it would go down 13 days, and then it would start over at 1.
Okay.
And so that's an interesting wheel we have to show.
So,
how the yeah.
no, thank you. Thank you. So, let's talk about this for a second. So, this is a calendar that obviously was produced a long, long time ago, um, and it was utilized. And we know that everything, has, whatever we've got, it isn't the real thing. And there's a lot of real things out there. And the Mayan thing is we know is huge. Uh, are we going to move into this calendar or a different time, so to speak, or a way of time? Or do you feel like this calendar is something we should be looking at, and these 13-day weeks we should be considering operating off of? Can you give us a little bit more on that?
I can't really speak to what we should or shouldn't be doing per se. I just think that the Mayan system, it's not based on anything physical. Like the Gregorian calendar is based on the orbit of the planet around the sun.
Oh.
The sun's a physical thing that we're tracking. The Mayan calendar is not tracking anything physical. It's tracking energetic things, like the creation patterns of the universe, for lack of a better term.
Right.
So I think that what makes the Gregorian calendar so insidious as a calendar is that it locks our consciousness into the physical only aspect of reality, when there's other things to consider: emotional reality, mental reality, spiritual reality. There's other ways to look at life. And what I find from the Tzolk'in, and just kind of following the flow of it, the way that, as she said, there's 13 numbers and there's 20 sun signs, and each number has a chance to combine with each sun sign over the course of 260 days. So it takes 260 days for all of those possible combinations to express.
Okay.
And if you think about it, in Genesis, the earth was created in 7 days and 6 nights. 7 plus 6 is 13. So 13 is there in the other cultures too. It's just been sort of demonized as an unlucky thing.
Mm-hmm.
And 12 was adopted as the more holy number, and 13 was thought of as an evil number. But in the Mayan system, the 13th number is the highest form, it's the highest energy expression, and it represents ascension. So it's kind of like taking Jesus out of the story of Jesus and the 12 apostles, in terms of cutting us off from the other side of reality.
Yeah. Like taking out that we are the God.
Yeah, yeah, and just making it about physical reality only.
Yeah. So, and all right. So this calendar, wherever it was originated, which it has to be, because, and I didn't know this till you said this right now, but this is actually something that is representing energetic patterns, some type of primordial, or you know what I mean. I mean, just it's got to be something, and whoever was channeling or attuned with that, or whoever's were able to then express this. That's almost like what we've all been going through, let's say, even for the last few years, especially as time has gone on, especially 2022, and even now in the January 2023, these massive fluctuations of energy. Some people can point to the solar flares or the Schumann resonance or whatever the case is, but we all know we're feeling it in our body. We talk about this every day in these communities. Do you think that there might be some? Is there a way to explore what the meanings are, as you would with the astrology, but like with each one of those squares, and if so, I'm sure you've probably done it. Could you apply it to the way the energy is moving and our sensitivity to the energy in present day?
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons I love this system so much, is because as I go through my day, since I'm aware of what combination of energies that this day represents. For instance, today is a 9 day out of the 13 numbers. It's a 9, and the sun sign is seed. And I could go into describing what that means, but my point is that throughout the day, as I'm aware of that energy expressing throughout the day, whatever synchronicities occur during my day help me understand the context of what's happening in my life as it relates to what's happening in through the energy of the day. And then within the context of the 13-day period, and then seated within that kind of fractally within the context of the entire 260 days, and then bigger and bigger scales. But their use of this system, like you said, goes back thousands of years, and their origin story, or their story for how they received the calendar, is kind of mysterious. The legend of Quetzalcoatl and Viracocha in South America, this strange, mysterious character coming to them and bringing them the calendar and bringing them agriculture and bringing them mathematics and science and sharing all this wisdom with them, and then disappearing and leaving.
Right.
So they don't necessarily claim that they invented it. They some of their legends indicate that it was given to them by someone advanced.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's I mean, there's quite a few oral histories around the world that have the same story.
Yeah.
So that's quite intriguing, and I am not into astrology. I can't say that. I mean, I know very little about it, but I have friends that are. I have a very good friend that's an esoteric astrologer from way back, and I've been around other astrologers, and some of them it's part of their language, so I can relate to what you're saying through them. Like something will be going on, but it's not really so much day. It's more of like month or period, or something's in retro, or right. So I can see that. So if somebody was as well versed as my friend with the esoteric in this, I could see how you would even have more information, kind of like what the people do with the gene keys, but this would be on a daily basis, something different every day. Does that calendar, and what's it called?
Tzolk'in.
Tzolk'in. So,
Yeah, it means count days.
okay. So with the Tzolk'in, are there like, oh, what am I trying to say? Like a natal chart, like a birthday. Is there a significance in that birthday?
Absolutely, yeah. They have a tree of life, they call it, birth chart,
Hmm.
that is remarkable. Like when there's a guy that lives down in Guatemala that does professional readings through Zoom, and when you sit down and let him break down the birth chart, he's talking about the energy combination on the day you were born according to the Gregorian calendar, but he knows nothing about you personally.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just explaining the process of the evolution of each energy within the birth chart. And there's 9 different signs that he goes over. And each person that I've talked to after they've had that chart reading, they're just blown away by what he's describing, because it's like he's describing their life story up until, from the past and childhood into their present life and what they potentially have coming in the future. And it's mind blowing in terms of the accuracy of the information that he's describing, knowing nothing about this person.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like he's claiming to be a psychic. He's just understands the calendar and what the energies represent as archetypes.
So in this system, for lack of a better word, the information and metrics available on a given date of birth have enough information to provide that type of detail, right?
Yeah.
So is this published in a book? Like you got the I Ching, or you got I don't know, Stitcherin, whatever his name is, with the Sumerian. Like the first, like, is there a text where somebody said, "Here, I got all this information, and I put it in a book," that's kind of like the go-to, or is there an original book from the culture?
There's their original creation story is called the Popol Vuh, and that
Papal.
information is the mythology, the history of the mythology. The calendar itself, most of it was burned. All the books that talked about it were burned, with the Spanish coming over and the conquistadors and everything. But some of it survived. Some of their codices survived that describe the information. But in terms of reference books that a person could buy today that are, there's like a book named Jaguar Wisdom by Ken Johnson, is a great introduction book to study the calendar, to learn about each of the sun signs and each of the 13 numbers, and the way it all weaves together. There's other books that have called, one of them's called the Serpent and the Jaguar, that gives you kind of a brief paragraph each day for each day, so you can kind of read. Like what I like to do is read that paragraph in the morning to kind of get into the awareness of what the energy of the day is, and then go about my day. Not and just have that awareness carried with me through the day. So there's a lot of different resources for learning about it. I can definitely send you some of that stuff.
Wow. Some of this I've heard people talk about over the years. I mean, once or twice. Some of the names that you're using, I remember. Now, and I have a real interest. Like, this is weird too. And I don't think it's because I think it's because y'all were coming on today. Because I had the same thing happening more and more when someone's coming on. I have these coincidences from the previous night. So last night I got this whole Hopi thing, this continuation of a Hopi thing, but from the Hopi thing it went to an Aztec thing, not Mayan, but it was Aztec, and I thought, oh wow, and it was almost like I was watching them migrate, or part of them migrate from Mexico up into, and the conquistador thing was there. It was weird, and now I'm talking to you about it. Is there a connection between, or do you know, is there a connection between like Mayan and Aztec, or even the term Toltec, or I think there's another one I can't remember. If I do, I'll tell you. But
Absolutely, they all use that same base calendar of the 20 sun signs, like the Aztec, big Aztec sun wheel that was discovered, and it's in the museum in Mexico City, that has the 20 sun signs on it. The Cherokee Indians have the exact same calendar of 260 days that they use. The same sun signs, the same numbers. They all have the same archetypal meanings. They have some different words for the names of the sun signs compared to the Maya, but it's the same exact calendar. It's spread all over the Americas.
have you been down to
Not yet.
Central America? Yeah.
Not yet. Someday.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You ought to jump in the van with Claudia and go on down there.
Yeah, we could drive all the way down.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to go down there, and I'm sort of waiting to go because I want to go when I have time to spend a lot of time down there versus just popping down there for a few days to see some kind of touristy sites and not really getting a chance to absorb into the culture.
Right.
So that's why I haven't taken that journey yet, but it's in my future.
So, were you born this way, or did you wait? Or have you always been this weird, or whatever I was trying to say?
I started waking up in 2011. The first 35 years of my life, I was just plain vanilla in the Matrix, and part of my waking up process was that documentary that I mentioned earlier, watching that, and also reading the book The Four Agreements
What's
by
it called?
Don Miguel Ruiz. The Four Agreements by Don
Oh
Miguel
yeah,
Ruiz.
yeah, the Four Agreements. Yeah.
Yeah, and taking mushrooms for the first time. That all happened in 2011 over a short period of time, and then I was just, my head blew off, metaphorically speaking, obviously.
That sounds like a pretty good combination.
Yeah.
2011 was my year. I know a lot of people in 2011. 2011,
Well,
2012, that was definitely a huge time. Go ahead.
the a different interpretation of the ending date for the Mayan calendar. That a lot of people thought it was December 21st, 2012, like you were mentioning earlier. The Tzolk'in system has been ongoing since the beginning of time. When you look back across the Mayan dating system for how long the universe has been around, it's 16.4 billion years. And so it's just kind of mind blowing that they have that number. Supposedly they're just, hunter gatherers in the jungle. How do they possibly know about 16.4 billion years without any kind of math to calculate that?
Mm-hmm.
It's just that's the extent of the accuracy of their system, is that it goes back that far. But I totally lost my train of thought now.
No, it's all right. Now, okay, so is there like, or let me ask you this way. Where are we at on the Mayan calendar? For those of us who don't have, like, where are we at? Are we in the new world? What is the new world? What did they mean?
Thank you. That brought me back to my point was about 2011, is that the Mayan system the age system that they have, we entered, for better lack of a better term, the new age at the end in October of 2011. That's when the Mayan dating system started a new age. A new, they call it a Bactun. It's like a period of 144,000 years or something like that. And that's kind of where they, back then, they were projecting forward to our time, saying this is going to be an important time because there's this shift. The calendar didn't end. It just started again after going through a whole long cycle of time. It's now starting again at the beginning of the cycle, but we're now, now we're experiencing the beginning energies of the cycle instead of the very ending energies, which we've been experiencing since the 20th century or whatever.
Is it similar to? This is the first day of the calendar day, the 260. So, and then this is the last day. So, but then we go back up to the first and start the energies of the first going over again, and then we go and go and we go down to the end.
It's just a never-ending cycle that repeats endlessly, and it's fractal. It's the smallest is 13 days, then it's 20 days, and then it goes up to 260 days, and then it goes from there up further and further in terms of length of time that these cycles repeat throughout history.
It makes me wonder with this explanation if we actually are experiencing, well, exactly what you're saying. The end, as in, like, it gets darker before the dawn, and then into this, for lack of a better word, like you said, new age, but actually staying in our bodies and doing it.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, are we going to ascend in our bodies? But it's actually sounds to me like that's just what we're doing. And some of us make it, and some of us don't. And it's just you really don't die, and it's something where we make it through in the body. I don't know. It's
or that the death is metaphoric versus literal.
Mm-hmm.
The death of the old version of yourself, so that the new version of yourself can be born. Because you got to get the old out of the way. You can't bring it with you.
Yeah. And I wonder if that is more applicable in this time than say in 1850, because part of, or 1750, because part of me thinks, shit, every day is ascension. I mean, it's, if you break it down, it's like you said, and metaphorically, literally, it's the same thing all day long, every day. But do you think that based on the calendar or whatever, that maybe this time it's a little bit different because we are coming to the end and the beginning at the same time?
I think that the potential for what we're going to witness in the next 20, 30 years, it will be something that will be talked about for a long time going forward. People looking back on this particular period in time and say that was a really significant shift point. The way that we look back at year zero, whatever that was, as a big shift point. And other times in history when big things happened, like relative to just the everyday mundane, that big, like a lot of things happen in a short amount of time versus it being over the course of a long period of time. Yeah, I think that's what we're witnessing. I feel like we all feel the sort of the speed up, anticipation of it coming closer to us, and it gets faster and faster the further we go into the future. So, and not to switch systems, but it's the same kind of concept with the age of Aquarius, moving into the new age in Western astrology and the zodiac. These ages come and go, and we're at the end of one age and the beginning of another age. And so there's this sort of handoff between the old paradigm and the new paradigm. And so during those handoff points, that's when things can kind of be chaotic, because in order for a new sort of established system to take root, the old one has to change or morph or dissipate, whatever. And that's where we're at.
Yeah. Do you guys really think it'll be 20 or 30 years? I didn't feel like that to me. I'm not disagreeing with you, but to me and maybe it's just my will or my hope or my whatever, but to me it feels like time's moving faster. Let me ask you a couple of questions. Do you feel like that we're entering a space where we can regenerate and grow younger, for instance?
I think it's possible. I don't know. I can't say I know, but I feel it. in my since beginning my wake up process, I actually feel younger, and I feel like I look younger than I did before. But I think that has a lot to do with the choices that I make in my life with my diet and the way I live my life, the things I don't participate in anymore, that represent negative frequencies, and that I think has an effect on our health and our vitality and our body's ability to regenerate.
Have
Yeah.
Have either one of you had like an uptick in, let's just say, the paranormal, the psychic, visitation, dimensional experiences over the last month since the solstice?
I would say that things seem to be kind of crazy starting off this year energetically, like just out in terms of what's going on in my local reality, the people in my life and the things that are happening around me. Things are chaotic, but I don't claim any kind of psychic abilities other than just sort of an intuitive knowing that there's
Well,
a
that's
spirit.
that's psychic. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, do you feel like
Yeah,
your sensitivities are gaining, or have you noticed anything? You know what I mean?
yeah, I would say with each year of waking up more, I become more and more sensitive.
Yeah.
But I don't really like present myself as some sort of psychic,
Oh
that
no,
can
I
tell you.
understand. Yeah, yeah, I get that. Yeah, it just
Yeah,
I guess what I'm saying is, or asking both you and Claudia, like it just feels like we've had these spurts since 2012, 2011, whatever, right? You'll have these spurts, and they used to come like every 30 days, and it just feels like you talked about since the 1st of January. Uh, I can't really speak to the chaos. I don't even know because I can barely contain a thought for very long because the energy is moving that fast. But there feels like there's been a spurt after spurt after spurt. Just uh, and I don't know if it's going to go away, but it certainly doesn't seem like it.
I think it comes and goes. I think it's kind of like waves. Like we get a set of waves in, like in a surfing analogy, and you ride those waves, and then it's calm for a while, and then more waves come in.
Hmm.
But the Mayan calendar specifically speaks to the speed up. And it doesn't suggest that time is speeding up. It suggests that the pace of creation is speeding up, and so more things become available to do at any given period in time, and so it causes us to feel like time's speeding up, but it's not. It's time's staying static, but what we have access to is increasing rapidly, exponentially, which is overwhelming to the ego mind. Like in the intuitive knowing space, it's it's just kind of what's happening in the moment. It's not overwhelming per se, but the ego's ability to keep up with the pace of change is rapidly separating, and
Right.
that's what causes most people to feel resistance and become
Good.
stressed out.
It's a good explanation. That maybe that's the great divide people have been talking about all these years. The two Earths. Your ego's
Yeah,
in one. Your ego's in one, and your soul's in the other. I
yeah.
was going to ask you. Oh, does the I know this is not directly Mayan calendar, but Mayan culture, Mayan perspective, Mayan code. Um, did they speak of anything that might be interesting to know of this time, like say in regard to the animal kingdom, in regard to uh, the non-physical relations, star family, anything, elementals? Did they speak to that at all?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah,
I think to me it feels like it's basically an internal change, or that it seems like it's going. This calendar is directed towards the human, kind of not so much out here,
Okay,
but in here,
okay, yeah, yeah,
kind of. And each day builds on each other. You learn this one first day, and then the next day you'll learn another change, another facet or something, and then you just get better and better and better and lovelier and enjoy life more and more.
I love it. Claudia, your frequency is always amazing.
You know, and one good thing, those Mayans were smart. They came up with a transformation day. It's called Transformer. And, why not have a Transformer day?
What day is it? What day is it?
Well, it's one of the sun signs, so every 20 days, one of the days, and that's
Yeah.
just the English translation for the
Yeah, of
word.
course. Yeah, yeah.
And, and it relates to death, physical
Oh,
death in particular, where
physical
you're
death?
transforming from physical into a spiritual self. So it's a very positive day
Right.
because you're shedding the physical and moving into the spiritual aspect of yourself.
Like ego death day,
Yeah, yeah.
identity death day, or whatever death day.
Just
God,
death of anything that's not serving
it.
your evolution.
I mean, God, that fits the pattern of that actually fits. If somebody is looking to do something like that, like like to go off astrology, to go off this, but I mean, from the outside looking in, it seems like the focus is really well. First, it is the day, right, and then there's this repetition. If somebody actually practiced it, where you would actually get the rhythms. But it seems like a more present oriented, or like Claudia said, inner oriented kind of a calendar. It has nothing to do with stars. Has nothing to do with the physical seasons. This is all almost like the internal workings of the great master clock itself, or something.
Well, that's actually something that I think is mind blowing about it is that it's both an internal system and it is incredibly accurate at describing like the Venus cycles and the eclipse cycles. That's why the Mayans were so good at predicting when eclipses were coming, is because this calendar tracks that. So
Wow.
it's the kind of as above, so below, as within, so without idea that whatever's happening out there is also happening inside of us at the same time.
So they weren't looking at the stars to predict a comet. They were looking at their really this isn't even a calendar. This is something else.
It's more appropriate to call it like an energetic tracking system versus a calendar.
Like a GPS,
Yeah,
right? It's like a micro macro GPS.
yeah, I like that.
So it's like you said, within, without, above,
Yeah,
below. Yeah, very
yeah,
cool.
and they're tracking. They're tracking it to figure out, okay, when's the best time to have a child so that when they're born on a day that will be favorable to them becoming the next leader. So they're looking forward in that regard. They're not necessarily making prophecies about what's coming, but they're saying this is what we want to have. So what day do we need to set it up so that it occurs on the right day, so that the energies are supporting the birth of that child, as an example, or the planting of the corn so that they can have a harvest on the right day, so that they can then plant their next harvest before the rainy season ends, or something like that.
Mm,
Like it's
mm.
all based on uh, following with the flow of the normal natural cycles of the planet and of creation itself.
We've had so many different people come on the show. I was just thinking as I'm listening to you, because this is so intriguing. Anyone that's had a past life memory or dimensional experience in a Mayan village or tribe, that would be an awesome conversation to have. I'm just putting it out there. Yeah.
For sure.
Now, are the contemporary Mayan people? I'm sure they're diminished drastically in their population, like so many of the indigenous. I think I read the other day yesterday there was 13,000 Hopi or something like that. Um, are they getting any more vocal now that this time has come? Are they getting? I'm sure they're getting more attention. I mean, do they have like a voice?
I mean, there's supposedly 8 million Mayans still alive
Wow, that's a lot.
in Central America, in Mexico and Guatemala and those areas, but very few of them are following the calendar. Most of them have been westernized.
Wow,
And
that's a
so,
lot. So that's
yeah,
really I mean, when you think about it, that's huge. That's
Yeah.
huge for that land area. Wow.
Yeah, they definitely didn't go extinct the way that people think that the Mayans disappeared.
Did
Their
the
culture fell, but the
do
people
you
survived.
do you have any anecdotes or stories or any knowledge at all about like the because I know they there's a lot of references obviously like a lot of these indigenous civilizations around the world to star family or visitations ships anything like that.
I think the closest that comes is like Quetzalcoatl,
Yeah,
like I mentioned earlier.
of course.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, of
I don't really
course.
know of any other
Yeah.
legends that talk about visitations.
Well, I mean these like when the Spanish went in there, I mean, what they found with the Aztecs and the Mayans and Incas, I mean, gold, literally gold everywhere. I mean, all kinds of, So, I mean, that was a pretty, and as I understand it too, they had a lot of advances, I guess. I don't want to say advanced technology, but like running water systems, just different things like that. So that, they must have been at to me like the right mix of living. And what I mean by that is you're utilizing innovation, and you might even say technology, but you're rooted to the earth,
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
right? I mean,
Harmony
I
versus
know
at
that
odds.
sounds, go ahead.
I was just saying that you're living in harmony with the earth versus at odds with it.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully all the fuckery's over. That's what it feels like to me. Is that ultimately what the Mayan calendar uh, points to from this point forward, at least for a given period of time, that you know, let's just say higher levels of alignment, more peace, etc.
I don't know that it points to that. I think it preaches that within the system itself. Just studying the combination of each day and what it's
Mm-hmm.
trying to teach is trying to orient the consciousness towards those types of ways of living. And then a person either chooses that path or they choose not to follow that path. It's
I
kind of
like
like
that.
Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world.
Well, I mean, I like that because it puts it right back on the individual. And it's like
Yeah.
if we're out there, we're not in here. And if we're in
Yeah.
here, the out there will take care of itself because as within, without. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it sounds like a very simple, straightforward, uh, actually, way of life. That's what it sounds like. That was their way of life, almost like Zen, right?
Yeah. And each of these 13-day periods is sort of teaching a different story that plays into that way of life of how to live right, how to live with the land, how to live in harmony with the natural cycles. And that's another thing I love about it is that there's just all these beautiful ways that they describe things that when you comprehend what they're trying to teach, you're just like, oh yeah, no, that just resonates inside. Like that, of course, it's kind of like common sense in terms of what's the right way to live. Without having to preach, you have to live this way. It's just like, I'm going to live this way or don't live this way. What do you think? Oh, well, I like that. That sounds good. That seems like it's in harmony. And it's a natural alignment the way it feels.
Yeah. And I guess, at some level, we're all on the same level. I mean, we do things that they would probably find horrifying and revolting, and vice versa, and rightfully so. Because we're talking about what we talk about today. So I don't know. I guess what I really like about what I've heard today is the continuation of it, the pattern of it, the originality of it, the one timeline of it. Like here is the science. Here is the universe. Go utilize it. Um, and it takes everything and everyone else out of it, and you're not going to get to the promised land. The promised land is in the evolution itself. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
a lot of these, they talk about Valhalla or heaven one way or the other, and not necessarily as a final resting place. But to me, there's always kind of that element of it, but this to me sounds more like it's always a continuation.
And
This
it's
is
always here and available.
Hmm.
Like Don Miguel Ruiz talks about in the Four Agreements that we're living in heaven and we're also living in hell simultaneously. Which one do you want to be in?
Well,
Because you can
a good shaman will be in both.
be sure. But you know what I'm saying? Like it's up to you to see that this is heaven right here.
Hmm.
If you see it that way and choose to orient yourself towards that being true, then you're living in heaven.
It's not so much these days what we do, it's how how we how we integrate ourselves into what's happening.
Mm.
Is that right? You know?
Alignment, right?
Yeah.
Like I kind of feel like you do that more than anything, we're feeling the alignment. As much as we chase it, and and that's helpful, I mean, like shadow work or whatever it is. But now it's coming in these waves you were talking about that you just go, okay. I mean, it can knock you flat on your back for 3 hours or whatever happens. It's coming in, and it's beyond surrender. It's just alignment. Okay, take me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, man, I appreciate y'all coming in. This was special. This was cool. It's a different
Do you
for
have
us.
more time?
Yeah. Did you have something you want to talk about?
Sidereal and
Sure. We can talk about that.
yeah, I'm ever since Patrick told me early last year that uh, tropical astrology that everybody's following is not depicting actually where the stars are at that current time. So there's tropical astrology, and there's many different kinds, and then there's sidereal or sidereal, however we want to say it. And sidereal is actually where the stars are in the sky, and because it has to do with the precession of the equinoxes. And so actually I'm not a Capricorn, I'm a Sagittarius. And
I
you know
always
that's
knew
your
that. Yeah, I got you. No, keep going. Is that the one with the 13 signs?
Well, Sidereal doesn't necessarily incorporate the 13th constellation, but that's another separate thing that isn't addressed by either of these systems, is that there are 13 zodiac constellations in terms of where the constellations that are in the ecliptic, where the sun passes through.
Right.
There's 13 of them, which again lines up with the Mayan concept of 13 being a sacred number.
Right.
And the 13th constellation, Ophiuchan, which your birthday is the 9th of December, she said?
Right.
That's your birthday falls within Ophiuchan.
I know. Yeah. And it's eerie. It's eerie
There's
all that when I found that it's eerie.
that, if you leave Ophiuchan out and just talk about the 12, the constellations, when you look at the sky, they're not each equal 30 degrees of the sky. They're all different sizes. So Virgo is 42 and a half degrees, not 30 degrees. It's bigger than the sign in tropical astrology.
You understand what he's saying? Because Virgo is a large constellation.
Yes.
Aries is this.
Yeah, so
No. I think what you're saying is that God, this is weird though. This is weird because of like the placebo effect, right? Our power of imagination and thought and belief. So you got one person who's looking at this erroneous, let's say a space where Virgo's got this huge expanse when actually it's really this. How does that play out? You know what I mean? That's crazy. It's when you think about it. I mean, I know it's all connected at the end of the day, and I find that fascinating, especially this whole 13 thing, because I know a lot of people, including myself, that have had meditations or dimensional experiences or messages or channels or whatever over the years, and 13 comes up, like the hidden one, You know, the hidden one of the 12 or something like that, or there was 12 and we're the 13th in the center. So I think there's some real, and the fact that it's been demonized, like other things, to keep us from looking there, basically.
Yeah, because it keeps us in the physical realm and cuts us off from kind of our true nature as spiritual beings living a physical life.
Yeah, yeah,
But what she was saying about the tropical system was invented approximately 2,000 years ago, when Aries was at the spring equinox, was behind the sun. You know, the constellation Aries was behind the sun on the spring equinox, and then over the course of 2,000 years, now on the spring equinox, Pisces is behind the sun because of the shift that occurs as a result of the precession of the equinoxes, which I don't know how much you've talked about that on your show or know about that, but essentially it's 1 degree of the sky every 72 years. The whole sky goes west to east. So over the course of 24,000 or 26,000 years, depends on how you calculate it, the whole entire fixed stars rotate the opposite direction one time.
right.
And so when you look at someone's birth chart today, any of us that are alive today, where the sun was on the day of your birth is not accurate according to the tropical system. You know, like yours would be Sagittarius, but actually when you look at the sky on a sky map, the sun was in Ophiucus, not in Sagittarius. And for her, it was in Sagittarius, not in Capricorn. Everything's off by about 24 degrees, or almost one full sign. So some people who are at the end of the sign will still be the same sign, but it's shifted to the beginning of the date range versus the end. But most people shift back one sign to the previous sign. So a Virgo would become a Leo, and a Leo would become a Cancer, and so on.
Unraveling and reweaving, one way or the other, all of us, I guess.
Yeah, I think I think they both have merit. We were just discussing this last night, that it's a bit upsetting for most people that are really invested in tropical astrology at first to even consider this idea, because they're so sure, like you were saying, that the mind has created this connection to this birth chart that they were given without the awareness or information that, you know, that's not exactly accurate according to what was actually happening in the sky. But here's this birth chart based on this system that was created 2,000 years ago, when everything in the sky was different than it is today, and we identify with it. And considering that it's the next sign over, and how there's this concept of cusp energies, like if you're born on a cusp, you kind of share you share the personality traits of both signs. I think that's why we can identify with the tropical birth chart, but it might not completely make sense to us for explaining everything about our personality. Whereas the Sidereal, or if you incorporate the 13th constellation and look at a birth chart like that, or conversely, look at the Mayan birth chart, which doesn't have anything to do with the precession of the equinoxes, it just rings so much more authentic and true, versus the tropical one. You kind of have to make it fit into a box, but if you don't know of any other options, then it's not something you're necessarily thinking you have to fit into a box. It just is something you put on, and you might not be understanding why it doesn't fit quite right.
Man, I didn't know there was a tropical or a sidereal. I had no idea. I have no idea on this stuff, but it's all very, and it, to me, it's I like being on the outside looking into a lot of this stuff, because I see the connections. It's weird, and even if you take, like, let's say there's five calendars, and I know there is at least that many. Everyone that buys into, for lack of a better word, whatever one they adhere to, starts to create a consciousness in the field. So you actually have cusp where there weren't cusp before, because they're like intersecting, right, as the awareness of the other ones come into play. It's kind of like a microcosm of what's happening for everyone, because I really feel like once we hear something now and we get it, it's done. We might take a little while, for things to settle in over time or whatever, but yeah, so it's so important to share information. What else?
And what you're describing about being able to connect the dots,
Mhm.
that's an Ophiuchan strength. So you're expressing your strength because it's part of who you are.
I didn't know that. How do you pronounce that?
Ophiucus,
Ophiucus,
or
that's right. Ophiucus, yeah. Yeah, I found out about right when I got about 2013. When I first started getting on social media, and this other poet had the same birthday I had, and he sent
nice.
me all the information. Yeah, and I've run into it a couple times, but yeah, there's the whole image of it, like fits all these other pieces. It's weird. Yeah, it's very weird. What else you
It's
got,
incredible.
Claudia? Huh?
It's incredible.
Oh yeah.
What?
What else you got? There's a bit of a lag. I'm sorry.
Um, wait, where's my smile? I got a smile. What else? What
Well,
else?
why don't you just give us an update on what you're doing? Because it's always you're like a pinball bouncing
Okay.
around.
Okay. Well, I'm at the same RV camp that I was last year, and anyway, I want to get my childhood play on. So JoJo, one of the other girls, one of the little girls, the other day said that I could play in the playground with her, and I'm so glad. I noticed that all we have to do with children is come out with our truth, and they understand.
Well,
It's so easy. Anyway, I'm over there, but Patrick's good on conspiracies. My sister was working on a 9/11 page, and they met on Facebook, and Lila says, "Oh, you like Patrick? Why don't you friend him?" Well, he and I have been friends. We've been Skyping and talking about the Mayan calendar for about 7 years, and so I really got to know it.
far out.
No, there's nothing else. Just play.
Right
Wait a
on.
minute.
Right on. Well,
The archetype, according to the Mayan, the archetype of God is play and love. It's depicted in dog and monkey, right in the middle. Dog for unconditional love, and monkey for the weaver, the creation, the fun of things, And so, anyway, that's another indication to be play and love if we want to get our God on.
right on. Get our God on. Get our goddess on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, y'all be good. All blessings to you, and we'll do it again sometime. And be safe.
It's good to meet you,
Thank
brother.
you.
Good to meet you.
Bye,
Peace out.
man. Thank you.
Bye bye.